welcome to Young Turks, the show that puts the spotlight on two young achievers every single week and takes you through their journey to success. I'm Shereen Bhan, and joining me on the show is Anita Balagopalan. Hi Anita.
Hi Shereen. Jitish Kalap's success story would paint a pretty picture for any upcoming artist. Meet him later on the show. For now, it's back to Shereen.
Brick and mortar is what our young Turk today was passionate about till technology came calling, and that became the name of the game. From New York to India, from Motorola to Sapient, he's been there and done that. Let's catch up with Sumeet Sabharwal on Young Turks today. He's a man on the move, and he's chalking up frequent flyer miles shuttling between India and Boston. Meet 33-year-old Sumeet Sabharwal, almost architect turned techie. Following in his father's footsteps, Sumeet took up architecture at Cornell in New York. But after a year and a very trying internship period, he decided architecture was not what he was cut out for, and that's how electronic engineering happened, and this small move turned out to be one giant leap for his career. What followed were stints with Motorola, Sapient, Introsphere, and now NaviSite.
I really wanted to go out and do something on my own, and I think I always had the entrepreneur bug in me. And so when I grew up, I always want to travel, and I always want to associate myself with something global and really go out and do something. And I started with a big company, Motorola, out of college. But, you know, at 5 o'clock, I look around, everyone's going home. I'm like, wait a second, you know, this is, you know, not what I expected. I expected long hours, big struggle. Very quickly realized that, you know, a lot of my drive and passion, you know, I'd have to find the right way to channelize it, and joined a small consulting company, or a fairly small company at that time, called Sapient. When I joined, they were a private company, and they were going through a transformation, and they listed and did IPO, and I was right there, and you know, it was like an epitome, and I realized, wow, this is what it means to build a company and then take it public, and this is, you know, what it's all about.
Considering that you were enjoying all of this so much, why didn't you just stay on with Sapient? Why the big change in 1997?
Well, what happened was, two of my friends who, you know, I went to school with approached me, and they said, look, we have some funding lined up, you know, the opportunity is there for us to go and do something. You know, what do you think about it? And I was just coming through the whole experience of seeing Sapient go public, right? And realizing what it means to go set up a company, you know, do it, you know, Sapient, and when you look at the story of two guys coming together and doing it with their own personal credit cards and this and that, I said, that's great, that's the journey, right? When I want to be able to tell my kids that, you know, I gave it a shot, you know, and not have any regrets. It's always challenging to have, and we, at some point down the road, we had expanded, so we had 4 people who had fairly substantial stakes in the company. And what we realized was, you know, that it was, well, you know, 4 fairly strong-minded individuals who had, you know, their own opinions and ideas of where they wanted to take the company. And we had someone who was interested in, you know, taking on the company too. And so, you know, the opportunity for me, I was, you know, I was always in touch, had great relationships with people at Sapient. In fact, had a couple of people that, you know, I still consider as mentors today. And one of them approached me and said, hey, you know, we're looking to expand in Australia. What do you feel? I said, great.
As Senior Vice President of Global Delivery and Managed Solutions, Sumeet Sabharwal is responsible for targeting mid-sized companies in the US. After starting from scratch, Sumeet is hoping to scale up the India operations and take the employee strength to 120 by the end of the year.
People ask me today, well, what's your biggest passion? Is, you know, to me, it's finding great minds, bringing them together, creating the vision for them, and having them march against that vision. You know, just immense amount of fulfillment. And you know, I'm doing that right now with NaviSite as well. It's just building that company up, where, you know, 6 months ago we had 0 people. Now we have 65 people, and we've got a leadership team, and it's just
So what really is the strategy? Because I believe you're going to continue to focus on mid-sized companies and mid-sized customers. What's the kind of targets that you have set for yourself?
So one thing that became very apparent to me last year, and this is the reason why I started at NaviSite, was that the one market in the US that's the most underserved with global delivery, but has the most potential, is the small to mid-sized market, particularly the mid-sized market. And these are companies from the 100 million to $1 billion in size. To me, I was like, great, you know, this is a great strategy of marrying the mid-sized segment with offshore, completely different sell. And that's been an, you know, a great education for me, and you know, the psyche of the buyer and the dynamics of the buyer, which is so different from, you know, the typical large Fortune 500 companies that I was used to selling into.
So has it meant reinventing yourself as well? Because as you said, you were used to dealing with larger companies, Fortune 500 companies. So for you personally as well, has it meant a little bit of reinvention?
You know, the big companies are very mature buyers of technology, and so for them to say, well, we're going to directly engage with offshore and work directly with offshore, and which is a sell that we do, is very easy. For the mid-size, it's very different. You know, they're slightly skeptical. You know, the fear of the unknown is there, and so you know, it's a lot more hand-holding with the right investment made particularly in their particular geography and region to provide them that support and to provide that cultural. At the end of the day,
you've gone up to 65 people. Where do you actually see the company headed in the next maybe year and a half or 2 years? Are you looking at upping the headcount considerably? What about the India operations? How's it going to work?
Sure. So our strategy, you know, in the has been to, you know, we've made investments in India. We're going to continue to expand India in an aggressive manner. We're looking to have about 120 people by the end of this year. Next year, you know, will be even more growth. The business in the U.S., you know, has been, so, you know, on the U.S. side, the whole services industry has been, is, and will continue to consolidate. And, you know, our strategy in the U.S. has been to expand rapidly in the mid-market, also look at other companies that might not have a global delivery play, integrate them into our
fold. So you are looking at acquisitions at this point, is it?
Particularly in the U.S., we always keep an open mind on those things. And, you know, it's, as a company, you grow both organically.
Anything on your radar screens as yet? Or
I mean, you know, as a public company, you know, we can't disclose a lot of these things, but, you know, those are things that we continue to look at. And that's where I think India serves as a tremendous advantage, because we've already made the investments.
Having spent more than 6 years leading and managing the global delivery operations for IT services companies, Sumeet is getting his arsenal in place to battle competition. With loads of energy and an urge to connect to people, Sumeet's networking skills have helped him as much as his entrepreneurial talent. A techie, a manager and a people person, this young Turk is gearing up to make his next big move.
Global delivery is a central part of our strategy, and expansion of India and really expansion of our service offerings, leveraging the investments we've made in India is the future for us.
I've been reading up a little bit about you, and that's something that comes up very often. You're a people person. How does that work? I mean, is that a deliberate, conscious effort on your part, or you're just naturally like that?
You do something for a while, it starts to sort of, you know, become you. And so by the time I kind of got out and got into consulting with Sapient, you know, consulting is such a field where you have to go out with clients, you have to interact, you have to socialize. You know, just saying that you've done something for them and calling it a day isn't good enough, right? It's, okay, what are we doing at 7 p.m. for dinner, and what are we doing for drinks on Friday? And so those kinds of things, as you know, I said, okay, this is great. I start to enjoy these things. I felt like I was making good relationships with clients, and that was helping us quite a bit in terms of what we were doing, both in terms of bringing revenue in and actually expanding what we were doing. And so
how's life personally for you changed? Because I believe you travel between India and Boston, where you have your family as well. So, you know, you like this whole business of being an international player and a global player, but how does it affect you on a personal level?
Well, you know, and that's, you know, That's the hardest thing, and I wish my wife was there because she would
You
go on.
haven't been able to sell that idea to her yet, is it?
The whole concept of globalization, I think everyone understands it but my wife, so maybe she just doesn't want to understand it.
That was Sumeet Sabharwal navigating his way through the tech world with NaviSite. Time for us to take a short break. Another young achiever coming up right after this short break. Stay right there.